Today we are reading Walt Disney's Cinderella, and this is a really interesting version because they have different artwork. This is story adapted by Jane Werner, illustrated by Retta Worcester, and this was written in the 1950s, so copyrighted. So interesting stuff. Once upon a time, there lived a kindly gentleman. He had a fine home and a lovely daughter, and he gave her all the money could buy, a pony, a puppy named Bruno, and many beautiful dresses. But the little girl wished for a mother and for other children to play with. So her father married a woman with 2 daughters of her own. Now, he thought, his daughter had everything to make her happy. But alas, the kindly gentleman soon died, and his second wife was harsh and cold to her lovely stepdaughter. She cared only for her 2 ugly daughters. Everyone called the stepdaughter Cinderella, now, since she sat by the cinders to keep warm as she worked hard, dressed only in rags. But Cinderella was not sad. She made friends with the birds who flew into her windowsill. And her best friends of all were, guess who? The mice. The mice lived in the attic with Cinderella. She made little clothes for them and gave them all names, and they thought Cinderella was the sweetest girl in the world. Every morning, Cinderella woke up from her dreams and went right to work. Out back, she set a bowl of milk for the stepmother's disagreeable cat, who watched for his chance to catch the mice. She fed grain to the chickens and ducks and geese, and Cinderella gave some grain to the mice when they were out of reach of the cats, of course. Then back into the house she went. Up the long staircase she carried breakfast trays for her stepmother and her 2 lazy stepsisters. And down she came with a basket of mending, some clothes to wash, and a long list of jobs to do for the day. "Now, let me see," her stepmother would say. "You can clean the large carpet in the main hall, and wash all the windows upstairs and down. Scrub the terrace, sweep the stairs, and then you may rest." Now, across the town was the palace of the king, and one day the king himself was giving orders to the great Grand Duke. "The prince must marry," said the king. "It is high time." "But first he must fall in love," said the duke. "We can arrange that," said the king. "We shall give a great ball this very night and invite every girl in the land." There was as much excitement when the invitation to the king's ball came. "How delightful," the stepsisters said. "We are going to the palace to a ball." "And I," said Cinderella, "am I invited too?" "Yes, you," mocked the stepmother. "Of course you may go, if you finish your work," she said, "and if you have something suitable to wear." I said if. Cinderella worked all day long. She did not have a moment to fix herself up or to give thought to a dress. "Why, Cinderella, you are not ready," said her stepmother when the coach was at the door. "What a shame." Poor Cinderella. But when she got to her room, she saw that her little friends had not forgotten her. They had been gathering discarded items from the stepsisters' rooms to fix a party dress for her. "Oh, how lovely," she cried. She looked out the window, and the coach was still there. So she started to dress for the ball. "Wait," cried Cinderella, "I'm coming too." The stepmother and her daughters all turned at the sound of Cinderella's voice. "My beads!" cried one stepsister. And my ribbon, cried the other, and those bows, you thief! These are mine. So they ripped and they tore at the dress until Cinderella was in rags once more. And then they pranced off to the ball. Poor Cinderella. She ran to the garden and wept as if her heart would break. But soon she felt someone beside her. She looked up, and through her tears she saw a sweet-faced little woman. "Oh," said Cinderella, "good evening. Who are you?" "Oh, I'm your fairy godmother," said the woman. "And now, dry your tears. You can't go to the ball looking like that. Let's see now. The first thing you'll need is a pumpkin," the fairy godmother said. Cinderella was confused, but she brought over a pumpkin. The fairy godmother said some magic words. Slowly, the pumpkin turned into a fancy coach. "What we need next are some fine, big mice." And at the touch of the wand, Cinderella's little friends turned into handsome horses. Then the old horse became a fine coachman, and Bruno the dog turned into a footman. "There," said the fairy godmother. "Now hop in, child. The magic only lasts till midnight." "But my dress?" Cinderella looked at her rags. "Oh, of course you can't go in that," laughed the fairy godmother. The wand waved again, and there stood Cinderella in the most beautiful gown in the world, and tiny slippers of glass. The prince's ball was underway. As soon as Cinderella appeared in the doorway, the prince walked over and asked her to dance. The king mentioned to the musicians that they struck up a dreamy waltz. The prince and Cinderella swirled around across the dance floor, and the king went happily off to bed. The prince and Cinderella danced every dance until the clock in the palace tower began to strike midnight. Bong, bong. "Oh," cried Cinderella, the magic was about to end. Without a word, she ran out the door. One of her little glass slippers fell off, but she could not stop. She leapt into her coach and raced home. But the spell was soon broken. "A glass slipper!" the mice cried. "Glass slipper!" Cinderella looked down, and sure enough, there was a glass slipper on the pavement. "Oh, thank you, godmother," she said. The next morning, the king learned that the prince wanted to marry the slipper's owner. "Thunder, scour the kingdom, but find that girl," he shouted to the duke. News of the duke's search ran on ahead, and the stepmother dressed her ugly daughters, hoping that one of them would be the prince's bride. "The prince's bride," whispered Cinderella. "Oh, I must dress too. The duke must not find me like this." Cinderella went off to her room, humming a waltzing tune, and then the stepmother suspected the truth, that Cinderella was the girl the prince was seeking. So the stepmother locked her in her room. "Oh, please let me out, oh please," Cinderella cried, but the wicked stepmother only laughed and went away. "We will save you," said the loyal mice. "We will somehow get that key." The household was in a flurry. The Grand Duke and his servant had arrived with the glass slipper. Each stepsister tried to force her foot into the tiny glass slipper, but they failed. Meanwhile, the mice made themselves into a long, live chain. The mouse at the end dropped down into the stepmother's pocket. He popped up again with the key to Cinderella's room. The Grand Duke was about to leave when Cinderella came flying down the stairs. "Oh, please, wait, please," she called. "May I try the slipper on?" Of course, said the Duke. But the wicked stepmother tripped the servant with the slipper. It splintered into 1,000 pieces. Never mind, said Cinderella. I have the other right here. And she pulled from her pocket the other glass slipper. Soon she was the princess of the land, and she and her husband, the charming prince, rode to their palace in a golden coach to live happily ever after. Good night. I love you.